Hello everyone, thank you all so much for tuning into today's case. Today's case is going to be on Cayce McDaniel. Cayce was born on July 14, 1982. Cayce was 5'4" at the time of her disappearance. She was only 14. On August 16, 1996, Cayce went to a back-to-school party at night. The back-to-school party was at a church her and her family attended. Cayce was dropped off home by a chaperone and a family friend, Pam King, after the back-to-school party. Pam says she dropped Cayce off outside and waited to make sure that Cayce got into the house safely. Sometime between 1:30 a.m. and 2 a.m., Cindy, Cayce's mother, arrived back home with her boyfriend after spending the night out at a party. Sydney later shares with investigators that she noticed that the television set in Cayce's bedroom was still on and the clothes Cayce wore to the party were laying out. This indicates that Cayce made it back home and has settled into her bedroom and changed into her pajamas. Sydney also notices a bowl of cookies and a glass of milk sitting on the floor walking throughout the house. Sydney discovers that the back door was left open, but didn't immediately think anything of this. She later shared with investigators that it would often come open accidentally. On August 17, 1996, Sydney didn't think that anything was wrong with Cayce when she was nowhere to be found in the early morning hours when she returned home. Cayce would often spend the night at a friend's house without question, and the family didn't have a phone at the time, so calling around wasn't an option. But the morning of, Sydney went to a family friend's house to call the house of Cayce's friend. When Sydney found out that the friend hadn't seen Cayce, Sydney and her family friend drove around town looking for Cayce. Cayce was last seen by Pam, and after a full day of searching for Cayce, her mother Sydney reports her missing to the police. The same night Cayce is reported missing, original detectives visit the home and identify no signs of foul play. At first, they expressed that Cayce might be a runaway, but after weeks passing with Cayce not calling friends or family, they begin to suspect that there was foul play. Investigators received a few tips during their initial investigation, but unfortunately, none of them led to anything. The first tip is an anonymous phone call that Sydney received, where the caller says they saw a truck in the driveway of her home at 12:30 a.m. Another unknown person called and said they saw Cayce's body floating in the river. Police followed through with investigating both phone call scenarios, but it is not publicly clear if those searches discovered anything. But in July of 2018, law enforcement linked Finis Ewan, known as P.D. Hill, known as Uncle Petey, to Cayce as a possible suspect in the case. It is reported that at the time of Cayce's disappearance, Finis was a family friend and that he was trying to make repeated advances towards Cayce's mom, Sydney. The investigators note that he was a suspect from early on in the case, but his identity was never publicly released. Also in 2018, Finis Hill was indicted on 2 counts of child exploitation charges for driving across state lines to engage in sexual activity with a person he believed to be under 16 years old. Ewan Hill was charged with the murder of Cayce. Ewan was charged with second-degree murder and abuse of a corpse. Ewan Hill was sentenced to 15 years in prison for exchange in a plea deal. Ewan will be eligible for parole when he is 85 years old and then 6 years of supervision. Ewan Hill has also faced many charges against harming children, but he is only serving this time. Cayce's remains have yet to be found. She has been missing for 26 years. This case is so sad. I feel like Cayce did not get any justice at all. He only got 15 years and then probation for 6 years. And if you think about it, that's nothing because he got to live out his life. And now he's like a grandpa in jail being taken care of by prison guards. I hope that something else happens and Cayce really gets the justice she deserves. Thank you all for listening. Have a nice day.